How's it going, guys? I hope you guys had a great week. So this week, guys, it would have been E3, but obviously given the circumstances in the world at the moment, E3 was postponed. It was supposed to be a digital event, and that's now been pushed back a couple of weeks because of what's going on. What I decided this week anyway, just to celebrate, gaming, E3, and still have some kind of contact with you guys, is every single day I'm going to be releasing a what do we know so far video about a specific game to be featured on that day. So that's what I'm going to start today. So the first game that we're going to look at today is Outriders. So here is everything that we know so far about Outriders. So let's start off with the basic facts. So this game is developed by People Can Fly. The talented team behind this game have worked on other quite notable titles, including Bulletstorm, Gears of War, Fortnite, and many others. So they are a studio that are very well versed in third-person shooters. This game is also published by Square Enix, and it's been in development for roughly about 5 years. So what is Outriders? Well, Outriders is a third-person RPG shooter. The game can be played either solo or with up to 2 other players, and it is set in a dark and desperate sci-fi world. It's also set for release in the fourth quarter of 2020, so holiday 2020, and it will be available on PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and this title will also be available on the next gen consoles as well. So it is going to be a release title for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. So let's talk a little bit about the premise. Well, Earth has been ruined and the survivors have taken to the stars in huge sleeper ships to find a new home and a fresh start. They discover a planet called Enoch, which looks promising, but before the civilians can obviously disembark from the ship, they need to make sure that it is safe. So they send out a team called Outriders. These awe-inspiring operatives are really the first on the ground, and using their training and combat skills, their role is to identify threats and clear the way for a wider landing. Fortunately, when they do land on Enoch, all seems safe. It's a beautiful planet, the local wildlife is reassuringly passive, and it seems like a paradise, almost too good to be true, you could say. The Outriders discover a mysterious signal, which they obviously are investigating, but as they are investigating this signal, and before an all clear can be given, the colony ships actually decide to give the order for settlers to land anyway, and that's when everything really goes to hell. The anomaly, a mysterious energy storm, descends on the settlers. It kills some while changing and rendering almost all of their technology unusable. In the chaos, an outrider, specifically your fully customizable outrider, is injured by the anomaly. In an attempt to keep them alive, they are pushed into cryostasis and frozen in suspended animation. More than 30 years later, you awaken to a very different world. The once beautiful fields of Enoch have become blood-soaked trenches. The sky burns, there is radiation all around, and there are hanged bodies lining these devastated fields. The first settlement is stripped of its technology and resources, and mankind has turned to savagery in order to survive. But Enoch's not the only thing that's changed. When you wake up, the surviving Outrider also discovers that they have some new mysterious powers, and they have been evolved by the anomaly, as well as many of the settlers in the world, and also the wildlife that inhabits that world as well has also become a lot more savage and a lot more dangerous. Armed with a gun and these new mysterious powers, you head out into a dark and savage world to discover what has happened to yourself, what this anomaly is, and also what has happened to humanity as a whole. And that is effectively the premise premise of the game, which for me sounds really, really interesting. So let's talk about the gameplay elements. Let's start off with character customization and classes. At the beginning of the game, players create their own customizable character and can choose from 4 classes. Each of them has unique abilities that the player can utilize. Each class has 8 specific abilities that can be unlocked as you progress through the main game. We do know about 3 or 4 of some of them, so let's go through each of the classes that we know about. Let's start off with what looks to me to be the most interesting and exciting looking class, and that is the Trickster. The Trickster is a fast maneuverable class that uses speed and time manipulation to cut down enemies. It's great for getting in behind foes quickly and delivering powerful precision attacks, and it's kind of like your infiltrator assassin class. There are 4 abilities that we know of. There is Temporal Slice. This temporarily paralyzes enemies. It kind of gives an area of effect damage, and it affects and can kill multiple enemies at once. You also have Borrowed Time. When using this ability, you gain a percentage of your maximum health as a shield, and you create a time clone of yourself to distract enemies and allow you to push on. But if you do get into a spot of bother and your life is potentially at risk, you can also teleport back to the clone to get you out of trouble. You then have Slow Trap. This is the most interesting looking ability for me. This creates a dome around you, and it slows enemies and projectiles that enter it, sort of like a bullet time bubble. It is great for dealing with large crowds of enemies, and also could be incredibly useful when you need to resurrect an ally. So you can throw out this bubble, slow down the enemies to giving you enough time to resurrect your friend. And the 4th ability is Hunt the Prey. This highlights a specific enemy that is visible and allows you to teleport directly behind them. So it is a great way to get behind enemies, but it's also really good to take out enemies at a distance. So say, for example, if there's a sniper in the distance, you can sort of teleport straight to them, take them out, and then steal their sniper perch and shoot from a distance. It's a really, really cool class. You then have the Pyromancer. The Pyromancer uses fire and flames to devastate crowds of enemies and control the battlefield. They are effectively your mage area of effect class. There are a number of different abilities that they have, 3 of which we know of. There is Thermal Bomb. This allows you to select an enemy and inflict burn and knockback damage to them. But the coolest feature of this is if they die while inflicted with this ability, they will actually explode, dealing damage in a large radius to nearby enemies. It looks kind of just deadly and kind of cool. You then have Ash Blast. This inflicts ash on all enemies in a large area, perhaps something like a debuff basically to enemies. And then you have Heat Wave. This is a wave of fire that deals damage and inflicts burn on all enemies in front of you. The 3rd class that we know of is the Devastator. This is a powerful class that makes brute force feel elegant, from gravity manipulation to impenetrable armor. It's all about getting close to your targets so that you can deal maximum damage. This effectively is your tank class. There are actually 5 abilities that I've found out about this class. So you have Earthquake, and this allows you to release a shockwave, damaging and knocking back enemies. You also have the ability called Golem, which allows you to fortify yourself against most damage by creating a kind of rock armor. You then have a Gravity Jump. This is where you jump into the air, dropping on a target enemy, damaging and knocking back all nearby enemies too. And then the last 2, and that is Reflect Bullets. This allows you to block bullets and projectiles, and when the skill expires, the accumulated damage that you have collected in this kind of like bubble is reflected back at enemies. And then finally we have Impale. This allows you to select an enemy to knock back and deal damage, and very similar to the Pyromancer's Thermal Bomb, if that enemy dies through this ability, the enemy will actually be pierced by a stone spike, granting buffs to nearby players with bonus armor and health regeneration, which you get for roughly 9 seconds. Those are the 3 classes that we know about, which sound really, really awesome. There is also going to be a fourth class as well. As yet, this class has not been revealed, so we don't know anything about it, but People Can Fly have said that they might reveal this class closer to the release date, so we may actually get to see what that class is. So let's talk about the combat, because the combat is what looks the most exciting for me. The combat in Outriders is fast-paced and intense. It is a cover shooter, so you can hunker down behind cover and obviously snipe from a distance or shoot from a distance, but the movement also looks really, really good, and you can also move freely around the field, so you can run, you can dodge roll, and it's these special skills and special abilities that you can unleash that really make the combat feel different and look exciting. Each of these special skills that can be unleashed have a short cooldowns, but apparently these cooldowns are quite generous, so you can flick between these abilities quite quickly. The game also has a skill tree that allows players to unlock and upgrade their skills, and these skills are every bit as important as your guns, and they kind of form the central pillar of your basic battle strategy. The idea is to combine your skills with other skills and with other players. For example, the Trickster can create a bubble that slows all enemies within it as well as their bullets, lining them up perfectly for, say, a Pyromancer to blast them with a wall of searing flame. Of course, this is a third-person shooter, so weapons are also a big part of the game. You can actually use 3 equipable weapons at any time, and players can use different weapons such as shotguns and assault rifles to defeat enemies. All of these firearms can also be customized with weapon mods, and you can also dual wield pistols, which I love the look of. Players will combat both monsters and human enemies. We got to recently see some of these evolved creatures on Enoch. So we got to see a Perforo, which is a very deadly looking sort of melee based creature that hunts in packs. There will also be boss fights and mini bosses as well, and even some of those boss fights against human enemies will mean you going up against empowered or augmented bosses with powers similar to your own. So we got to see a Guardian which had special sort of lightning abilities, and these look really, you know, deadly and challenging. Of course, this is going to have role play elements to the game as well. You can level up and customize your skill set. You will also find loot in the world to upgrade your weapons and armor will also have passive effects that can affect your abilities and your cooldowns. As players explore, you can explore different hub areas, talk to non-playable characters, and complete side missions. And in cutscenes, we have seen that there are dialogue tree options allowing you to decide the outcome of certain conversations, though it doesn't really affect the story's progression in any great way from what we can see. The game can also be played solo and features a 3-player cooperative multiplayer mode, and all cutscenes will be played across all players in a party, so you pretty much can progress through the main story campaign either by yourself or with your friends. Let's talk a little bit more about the leveling system. So every class has multiple skills available, although you can only have a few of them equipped at any given time. So like I said, there are 8 skills available for each class, but you can only actually equip 3 of them. There are also character mods as well, so when you level up, you'll earn class points, which can then be used to modify your character. These could be stat boosts to improve particular skills, or buffs that make you more effective with firearms, for example. There are 3 branches to this leveling system: movement, damage, and disruption. We also have learned recently about a new system called the World Tier system, which is a dynamic difficulty setting, allowing players to change the world's difficulty and level of challenge at their own leisure. For example, if you wish to just focus on the story, then you can do that. But if you want to play a truly difficult version of the game, you also have that choice as well. You basically unlock world tiers through combat. It is a separate bar to your normal XP character level bar, and it really is tied to your prowess in combat. So as you succeed and kill enemies, you level up this world tier bar, and that allows you to unlock the next world tier. But interestingly, if you die, you actually lose a percentage of the world tier advancement. So that's to make sure people can't get ahead of themselves, and maybe if you're going into the next world tier and you're dying a lot, then maybe your gear that you got isn't quite good enough to be able to survive that world. So it's to stop people, jumping into a level that they just can't handle. Each unlocked world tier will actually reward you with either a resource or a rare, epic, or legendary weapon. And there are actually 15 levels of world tiers. The higher the level, obviously, the more difficult it will be, increasing the damage, armor, health, and level of enemies. But there is a reason for taking on, obviously, more difficult world tiers, because you will gain more rewards, better loot drops, and you also unlock more accolades. So there is definitely a challenge and reward system here, which is really cool to see from the get-go. This kind of thing is usually the sort of end game content that we're used to, so it's interesting to see this available to you as you progress through the story. The difficulty of the gameplay as well will also be affected by the amount of players in the game. So if there are a full team of 3, then obviously enemies are going to level up to meet the number of players in the game, providing a decent level of challenge for the team. So there you have it, guys. There is everything that we know so far about Outriders. I've got to say, actually, I'm interested in this. When I first saw the trailer for this game, I really didn't know what to expect. But I think Square Enix have done a pretty good job recently of showcasing what the game is all about. And I'm really looking for a really good multiplayer game, co-op game to play with my friends. It's been a while since I've played something that looks really fun. The abilities look really cool. The world setting looks really interesting. So I'm really interested to play it. So there is everything, of course, that we know. What do you guys think of this game? Is this something that you are interested in playing? Is it your cup of tea? Is it your kind of thing? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Obviously, I hope you guys found this video interesting and informative. If you did, please hit the like button as always to show your support. I'll be back again tomorrow with another What Do We Know So Far video, so please look forward to that. Hope you guys are staying safe. Hope you guys are doing well. Take care, guys and girls, and as always, happy gaming. Bye, guys.